I never expected to be sitting in this dim law office, staring at words that somehow hurt more than all the years of subtle cruelty combined. The paper trembled slightly in my hands as I read the line again. To our mistake, Sarah. Nothing. 5 simple words that confirmed what I'd always suspected but never wanted to believe. The irony wasn't lost on me. For the past 5 years, I'd been sending $5,000 every month to keep my family afloat. That's $300,000 of my hard-earned money, poured into a bottomless pit of ingratitude. And now, sitting in this leather chair that probably cost more than my first car, I was officially nothing. Miss Evans? Mr. Patterson, the family lawyer, cleared his throat. Would you like a moment? I looked up, meeting his careful gaze. He was trying to be professional, but I could see the discomfort in his eyes. He'd known my family for years, had watched this drama unfold from the sidelines. Now he was forced to be the messenger of my mother's final act of rejection. No, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Please continue. He shuffled his papers, clearly relieved to move on. As he droned on about the distribution of assets between my father and my sister Marie, I let my mind drift back to where this all began. 5 years ago, I was just starting to find my footing in life. At 25, I had launched my own financial consulting firm. It wasn't much, just me, a laptop, and a tiny office above a Chinese restaurant in downtown Seattle. The smell of Kung Pao chicken would waft up through the floorboards every day around noon, but the rent was cheap, and I was determined to make it work. Then came the call that changed everything. Sarah. My mother's voice had been uncharacteristically fragile that evening. We need to talk about something important. I remember sitting straighter in my chair, my stomach tightening. Important in my family usually meant bad news. Your father's company, there's been a problem. She paused, and I could hear her struggling to maintain composure. The investment didn't pan out. We're going to lose everything. The investment. I'd warned them about that. Dad's company had sunk most of their capital into a risky venture, despite my advice against it. I'd spent years studying finance, had even worked at one of the top investment firms before starting my own business. But what did I know? I was just the daughter who disappointed them by not following the traditional path they'd laid out. How bad is it? I asked, already dreading the answer. We can't make the mortgage payment this month. Her voice cracked. The credit cards are maxed out. Your father, he's not handling it well. I closed my eyes, knowing what was coming next. The subtle guilt trip, the implied responsibility. I'd seen this pattern my entire life, just never on this scale. Sarah, I hate to ask, but how much do you need? The number she quoted made my heart stop. $5,000. That was almost everything I had in my business account. Money I'd been saving to expand my company, to finally move out of that cramped office with its perpetual smell of Chinese food. But they were family. And in our family, that word carried weight. It meant obligation, duty, sacrifice, especially from me. I'll transfer it right now, I heard myself say. That first transfer was supposed to be a one-time thing, just enough to help them get back on their feet. But 1 month turned into 2, then 3, then 12. Each time there was a new crisis, a new reason why they couldn't make ends meet. And each time, I opened my banking app and sent another $5,000. Meanwhile, my sister Marie flourished. She had followed the path our parents wanted, married well, had the perfect suburban life, never took any risks. She didn't have to worry about our parents' financial struggles. That burden fell squarely on my shoulders. The lake house goes to Marie. Mr. Patterson's voice cut through my memories, along with the summer cottage in Maine and your mother's jewelry collection. I felt a bitter smile tug at my lips. The lake house. I'd spent the last 2 summers paying for its maintenance, fixing the roof, updating the plumbing, all while Marie hosted elaborate parties there, playing the role of the perfect daughter. The remaining liquid assets will be divided between your father and Marie, with a 7,030 split in your father's favor. Mr. Patterson paused, glancing at me apologetically. That concludes the major points of the will. I sat there, letting the reality sink in. 5 years of support, of sacrificing my own dreams to keep them afloat, and this was my reward. To be officially labeled as the mistake in my mother's last words. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably another text from Dad about this month's mortgage payment. It was due in 3 days. He'd been reminding me all week, as if I might forget my familial duty. With steady hands, I pulled out my phone. Mr. Patterson was still talking. Something about signing papers, but I wasn't listening anymore. I opened my banking app, navigated to the recurring payments section, and found the one labeled Family Support. 1 tap. That's all it would take to end 5 years of financial drain. 1 tap to finally say enough. Miss Evans? Mr. Patterson's voice seemed distant. Do you have any questions about the will? I looked up from my phone, meeting his gaze. Just one, I said quietly. When does this become official? The will? It's effective immediately. I nodded, then pressed my thumb against the screen. Cancel payment. Confirm? Yes. Standing up, I smoothed down my skirt and picked up my purse. Thank you for your time, Mr. Patterson. I trust you'll inform my father and Marie of the details. He blinked, caught off guard by my calm demeanor. Yes, of course. But don't you want to discuss this with your family? Perhaps there's been some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. I cut him off gently. The will is perfectly clear. I'm the mistake, and mistakes don't pay bills. As I walked toward the door, my phone started buzzing again. Dad's name flashed on the screen, probably wondering why I wasn't answering his texts about the mortgage. For the first time in 5 years, I hit decline. Outside, Seattle's perpetual rain had stopped, leaving the air crisp and clean. I took a deep breath, feeling lighter than I had in years. My mother's final words had hurt, yes, but they'd also freed me. No more pretending, no more obligation, no more draining my resources to fuel their lifestyle. I had built something from nothing once before, starting with just a laptop and a dream in a tiny office above a Chinese restaurant. I could do it again, but this time without the weight of family expectations holding me back. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Marie. Where are you? Dad's trying to reach you about the mortgage. I typed out a reply, then paused, considering my words carefully. Finally, I wrote, Tell Dad the mistake is done fixing your problems. Time to solve them yourself. Then I blocked their numbers, slipped my phone back into my pocket, and walked toward my car. It was time to start writing my own story, one where I wasn't the mistake but the masterpiece. But this was just the beginning. What I didn't know then was that my family's reaction to being cut off would spark a chain of events that would change everything. Their desperate attempts to regain control, their manipulation tactics, and ultimately, their shocking discovery about who I'd become while they were busy dismissing me. All of that was yet to come. For now, though, I just drove home, watching Seattle's skyline grow larger in my windshield. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for the first time in years, I was ready to face them on my own terms. The office above the Chinese restaurant was long gone, replaced by a modern space in a high-rise downtown. But sometimes, when I needed a reminder of how far I'd come, I'd order Kung Pao chicken and smile, remembering the girl who started with nothing but determination. That girl wasn't a mistake. She was a force of nature. And now, finally, she was free. The first sign that my family had discovered the canceled payments came 3 days later. I was in my office, reviewing a potential acquisition deal, when my assistant Oliver buzzed in. "Miss Evans? Your father is in the lobby. He's quite insistent about seeing you." I glanced at my computer screen. Exactly 72 hours since the mortgage payment was due. Right on schedule. "How insistent?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "He's threatening to call security if they don't let him up." Should I? "No," I cut in, saving my work. "I'll handle this. Send him to conference room P and make sure recording is on." 5 years of managing my family's finances had taught me one thing: always keep records. Something told me I'd need them soon. The conference room was all glass and chrome, with views of Seattle's skyline that usually impressed clients. My father stood at the window, his reflection showing a face I barely recognized. Gone was the confident businessman who dismissed my career choices. In his place stood someone desperate, angry, and dangerous. "The mortgage payment bounced," he said without turning around. "Yes. Your mother just died, Sarah." He finally faced me, using the guilt card he'd played so many times before. "Is this really how you want to honor her memory?" I sat down at the conference table, gesturing for him to do the same. He remained standing. "Mom made her feelings clear in the will," I said calmly. "To quote exactly, 'To our mistakes, Sarah. Nothing.'" That was just. He waved his hand dismissively. "Your mother was upset about some things. You know how she got. But this isn't about that. This is about family." "Family." I repeated the word slowly. "Like how you and Marie got everything while I got labeled a mistake." His face darkened. "You're being childish. We need that money. The mortgage is no longer my problem." I stood up, matching his stance. "I've sent you $300,000 over the past 5 years. Money that could have grown my business, bought my own house, built my future. Instead, it went into a black hole of ingratitude." "Ingratitude?" His voice rose sharply. "We gave you everything: an education, opportunities, that I paid for myself." I cut in. "Full scholarship to college. Worked 3 jobs to cover expenses. The only thing you gave me was the constant reminder that I wasn't good enough." He slammed his hand on the table. The sound echoed through the room, but I didn't flinch. "You ungrateful little." He caught himself, visibly trying to regain control. "Fine. How much?" "Excuse me. How much to make this right? You want a share of the inheritance? Name your price." I laughed, and the sound seemed to startle him more than anger would have. "You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about money. This is about respect, about recognition. Things you and Mom never thought I deserved." "What do you want then?" His voice had turned calculating. I recognized that tone. It was the same one he used in business negotiations. "Nothing," I said simply. "I want nothing from you. No money, no relationship, no family obligations. I'm done." His face went through a series of emotions: shock, anger, and finally, the one I'd been waiting for: fear. "You can't do this," he whispered. "The house? Everything. We'll lose it all. Probably, I agreed. Unless Marie steps up. She got the inheritance after all. I'm sure she'll be happy to help. The mention of Marie seemed to trigger something. He pulled out his phone, fingers shaking slightly as he dialed. I could hear it ringing on speaker. Daddy? Marie's voice filled the room. Did you talk to her? Did you fix it? Marie, he said, eyes locked on me. Your sister is being difficult. Perhaps if you spoke to her. Put her on. I shook my head, already heading for the door. Goodbye, Dad. Good luck with the mortgage. His voice stopped me at the threshold. I'll tell everyone, he threatened. All your business contacts, your clients. They'll know what kind of person you really are, abandoning your family like this. I turned back, smiling. Go ahead. Tell them how your younger daughter paid your bills for 5 years while you gave everything to her sister. Tell them how you labeled her a mistake in her mother's will. Tell them exactly why she finally said enough. I closed the door on his stunned face, but I could still hear Marie's voice through the glass. Daddy? What do we do now? Back in my office, I'd buzzed Oliver. Cancel all my appointments for the rest of the day. And Oliver? If any of my family members try to come up again, call security immediately. Yes, Miss Evans. Also, your sister Marie has called 6 times in the last hour. Block her number. And send in the acquisition papers for the Thompson deal. I need something to focus on. I spent the next few hours buried in work, but my phone kept lighting up with messages from unknown numbers. My family trying to reach me through different lines, each one more desperate than the last. Sarah, please. We'll lose everything. This isn't what Mom would have wanted. You can't just abandon us like this. The bank is threatening foreclosure. I blocked each number methodically, but one message from Marie made me pause. Fine. Be that way. But don't come crying to us when your precious company fails. Nobody succeeds alone. She was wrong about that. I had succeeded alone. Every step of the way, from that tiny office above the Chinese restaurant to my current success. I'd done it without their help. In fact, I'd done it despite their constant undermining. That evening, I stayed late at the office, watching the sun set over Elliott Bay. My phone had finally gone quiet, but I knew this wasn't over. My family wasn't used to being denied anything, especially by me. They would escalate, try to find ways to pressure me, attempt to use my business contacts against me. What they didn't know was that I was prepared. 5 years of supporting them had taught me to document everything. Every transfer, every text message begging for money, every email promising it would be the last time. I had it all safely stored away. I also had something else they didn't know about: leverage. The Thompson deal I was reviewing wasn't just any acquisition. It was for a property management company that happened to handle several of Dad's business properties. Properties that were already struggling due to his financial mismanagement. If they wanted to play hardball, they'd learn that the mistake had learned a few tricks of her own. My computer pinged with an email notification. It was from Mr. Patterson, the family lawyer. Miss Evans, your father has requested a family meeting to discuss recent developments. He suggests tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the lake house. Marie and her husband will be present. Please consider attending to resolve this situation amicably. Regards, James Patterson. I hit reply. Mr. Patterson, thank you for the invitation, but I must decline. As the lake house now belongs to Marie, I have no right to be there. As for resolving this situation, I believe Moms will make everything perfectly clear. Best regards, Sarah Evans, CEO, Evans Consulting Group. I added my full title deliberately. Let them see what the mistake had built while they were busy dismissing her. Just then, Oliver knocked on my door. "Miss Evans? You should see this." He handed me his tablet, open to a local business news website. The headline made my blood run cold. Evans Drama. Local BUSINESSMAN. ACUSES. DUEHER. A financial abandonment. There was my father, quoted extensively about how his ungrateful daughter had cut off support for her grieving family, how I'd taken advantage of their trust, then abandoned them in their time of need. The article even mentioned my company by name. So this was their play. They thought they could shame me back into line, damage my business reputation until I had no choice but to give in. What they failed to understand was that shame only works if you accept it, and I was done accepting their version of reality. I handed the tablet back to Oliver. "Call PR. It's time to tell our side of the story." The next few days would change everything. My family thought they could pressure me into submission, but they were about to learn that the daughter they dismissed for so long had become someone they couldn't afford to antagonize. Their attempts to damage my reputation would backfire spectacularly, leading to revelations that would shake our family's foundations. But that was tomorrow's battle. For now, I had work to do, starting with a call to the Thompson Group about accelerating our acquisition timeline. The PR war my father started backfired spectacularly within 48 hours. I hadn't planned to make our family drama public, but since he opened that door, I walked right through it. My company's PR team released a simple statement, a detailed record of every payment I'd made to my family over the past 5 years, alongside a copy of the relevant section of my mother's will. No emotional commentary, no accusations, just cold, hard facts with a single question at the end. Who really abandoned whom? The public response was immediate and overwhelming. Local business forums exploded with discussions. The same news outlet that had published my father's accusations now ran a follow-up piece. Family financial abuse. The dark side of filial obligation. But I wasn't done yet. "The Thompson acquisition papers are ready," Oliver announced, placing a thick folder on my desk. "They're offering a 15% discount if we close by the end of the month." I smiled, opening the folder. Thompson Properties managed 60% of my father's business real estate. Once this deal went through, I would effectively become his landlord. "Schedule the signing for next week," I said, then paused. "And Oliver?" "Make sure my father receives an invitation. He should know who his new property manager is going to be." The next few days passed in a blur of activity. My family tried everything to regain control. Marie showed up at my office twice, only to be turned away by security. My father attempted to contact my major clients, but my reputation for integrity spoke louder than his desperate accusations. Then came the text that changed everything. It was from my father's business partner, Michael. "Sarah, you need to see this. Your father's trying to sell the company." Attached was a photo of a contract. My father was planning to sell his remaining business assets at a fraction of their worth to a holding company I'd never heard of. It seemed desperate until I looked closer and recognized Marie's husband's signature on the incorporation papers. They were trying to hide assets. I forwarded the evidence to my lawyers, then made a call to the one person who could help me understand what was really happening. An hour later, I sat across from Michael in a quiet cafe 3 blocks from my office. He looked tired, older than his 50 years. "It's worse than we thought," he said, sliding a USB drive across the table. "Your father, He's been moving money around for years. The investment that supposedly failed, it didn't. He shifted the profits to offshore accounts, then claimed bankruptcy to avoid paying investors. I felt the blood drain from my face. That's fraud. Michael nodded grimly. The SEC's been sniffing around. Your father knew. It was only a matter of time before they found something. That's why he needed your money, to cover the gaps in the books. And now that I've cut him off, he's desperate. The sale to Marie's shell company is his last attempt to hide whatever's left before everything crashes down. I stared at the USB drive, feeling the weight of its contents. Why are you showing me this? Michael's eyes met mine. Because I was there when you were born. I watched you grow up, watched them dismiss every achievement, every success. You deserved better. I slipped the drive into my purse, my mind already racing with possibilities. Thank you, Michael. What are you going to do? I stood up, dropping enough cash on the table to cover both our coffees. I'm going to make sure they can't hurt anyone else. Back at my office, I reviewed the documents Michael had provided. The evidence was damning. Years of systematic fraud, all carefully documented. My father hadn't just been stealing from investors. He'd been stealing from his own company, his employees' pension fund, even his partners. I made 2 calls. One to the SEC, arranging a meeting for the next morning. The second to Mr. Patterson. Miss Evans, he answered on the first ring. I was just about to call you. Let me guess, another family meeting? Yes, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Your father insists it's urgent. I checked my calendar, already knowing I was free. The lake house again? Actually, no. Your father's office. He says it's about the future of the family business. Perfect. Tell him I'll be there. The next morning, I met with SEC investigators, turning over everything Michael had provided. They were particularly interested in the attempted asset transfer to Marie's shell company. At 2 p.m. sharp, I walked into my father's office building for what I knew would be the last time. The receptionist directed me to the main conference room, where I found my father, Marie, her husband James, and Mr. Patterson already waiting. Sarah, my father stood, attempting a smile. Thank you for coming. We have a proposition that could benefit everyone. I took a seat, noting the thick contract in front of Marie. I'm listening. We're restructuring the family business, he began. Marie and James have created a new holding company. We want to transfer all assets to this new entity, with you receiving a 15% stake. In return, we need you to resume me the monthly payments and publicly retract your recent statements. I picked up the contract, pretending to read it carefully. And if I refuse, Marie leaned forward. Then you get nothing. No stake in the company, no share in any future profits. You'll be completely cut off from the family fortune. What family fortune? I asked quietly. The one Dad hid in offshore accounts, or the one he stole from his investors. The room went deadly silent. My father's face turned pale. What are you talking about? Marie demanded, but I could see fear creeping into her eyes. The SEC is very interested in that question, I said, standing up. In fact, they should be arriving any minute now. I had a fascinating meeting with them this morning. The sound of elevator doors opening echoed down the hall, followed by multiple footsteps. You didn't, my father whispered. Actually, I did. But don't worry, I made sure they got everything. The offshore accounts, the fraudulent bankruptcy, even this latest attempt to hide assets through Marie's company. Consider it my final gift to the family." The conference room door opened. 3 SEC agents entered, followed by 2 police officers. "Henry Evans?" One agent stepped forward. "We have a warrant for your arrest." What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. My father, trying to delete something on his phone before an agent snatched it away. Marie, screaming that I had no right, that I was destroying the family. Her husband, attempting to flee before being stopped at the elevator. Mr. Patterson just sat there, shaking his head slowly. "I should have known," he muttered. "All those years of meticulous record-keeping." I watched as they led my father away in handcuffs, Marie and James following shortly after as material witnesses. The family empire, built on lies and manipulation, crumbled in less than an hour. Outside, reporters had already gathered. Someone must have tipped them off. As I walked to my car, I heard my father's voice one last time. "Sarah, you can't do this. We're family." I turned back, meeting his eyes. "No, Dad. I'm just the mistake, remember? And this mistake just corrected a lot of wrongs." 3 months later, I sat in my office, reviewing the final report from the SEC investigation. My father had been sentenced to 15 years for fraud and embezzlement. Marie and James got lighter sentences for their roles in the attempted asset concealment. The lake house and other properties were seized and sold to repay investors. Oliver knocked on my door. "Miss Evans? The Thompson deal is complete. You now officially own the management rights to all former Evans Properties buildings." I nodded, closing the SEC file. "Schedule a meeting with the tenants. I want to discuss modernization plans and potential rent adjustments. Also," he hesitated, "there's a letter from your father." I held out my hand, taking the prison-stamped envelope. Inside was a single page. "Sarah, I understand now what you meant about respect, about recognition. I'm sorry it took losing everything to see what we had in you. Dad." I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my desk drawer. Maybe someday I'd respond, but not today. Today, I had a company to run and a future to build. My phone buzzed, a text from Michael. "Saw the Thompson deal announcement. Your grandfather would be proud." I smiled, remembering the only family member who had ever believed in me. He'd called me his $1,000,000 mistake once, teasing my parents about their short-sightedness. Looking out over the Seattle skyline from my office window, I realized he was wrong. I wasn't a $1,000,000 mistake. I was a $1 billion success story. And I had done it my way, without their help, without their approval, and finally, without their chains holding me back. The mistake had become a masterpiece.